Hey guys, tonight we're diving into the brutal, beautiful, and deeply unsettling world of Japanese yokai. Forget those cute little mascots and friendly spirits you've seen in anime. We're going to peel back the layers on the true, terrifying nature of these creatures. We'll explore the myths that were used not to entertain, but to genuinely scare people into behaving, to explain the unexplainable, and to remind them that the world around them was full of things far more dangerous than just wild animals. I'm talking about things that would eat you, curse you, or simply lure you to your frozen death in a blizzard. You probably wouldn't survive a single encounter. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're listening from and what time it is, and we can all drift off together. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. We begin our journey in the dark, smoky halls of ancient Japan, where the line between the natural world and the supernatural was as thin as a thread. The air hangs heavy with the scent of pine and burning incense, and the flickering candlelight cast long, dancing shadows on the paper walls. You're huddled with your family, listening to the wind howl outside, and your grandmother leans in, her voice a low, raspy whisper. You must never go out alone at night, she warns, her eyes wide with a fear that is 1,000 years old, for that is when the Oni come out. The Oni are perhaps the most famous of all yokai, the archetypal Japanese demons. When you picture them, you likely see a hulking, muscular figure with bright red or blue skin, sharp fangs, and a shock of wild hair. They often carry a massive iron club, called a kanabo, and they wear a loincloth made of tiger skin. The phrase Oni with an iron club, Oni ni kanabo, is a common saying in Japan, meaning to be invincible or to be strong beyond measure, but their true story is much more complex and, frankly, much more terrifying than just being big, mean bullies. The brutal origins of the Oni aren't a simple tale of monsters. They're a story of transformation, of fear, and of spiritual pollution in the earliest myths. The word Oni was a much broader term, often used to refer to unseen spirits, ghosts, and vengeful phantoms. The original Japanese character for Oni, Gui, can be read as ki, a word that means ghost or demon. They were the ghosts of the dead, the spirits of those who had died with unfinished business, and the vengeful manifestations of powerful, negative emotions. This is a common historical truth across many cultures. Monsters often start as a way to personify human anxieties and the unknown. They are the unseen terrors, the things that go bump in the night, and a reason to stay inside and be a good little kid. As Buddhism spread throughout Japan, the mythology of the Oni began to shift and solidify. The Oni we know today started to take shape, heavily influenced by Buddhist cosmology. They became the torturers and wardens of the Buddhist hells, known as Jigoku. You see, in Buddhist teachings, if you've been a particularly bad person, a liar, a thief, or someone who caused great suffering, your soul might end up in one of these hells. And who would be there to greet you? The Oni. They were the ones who would flay your skin, boil you in a cauldron, or grind your bones to dust. They were the perfect instruments of divine punishment. Their terrifying forms and brutal methods a visceral warning against a life of sin. This is a fantastic little detail, isn't it? The Oni didn't just appear out of nowhere. They were co-opted, given a job, and a new identity. This transformation from formless, vengeful spirits into organized, hellish executioners gave them a purpose that was deeply ingrained in the moral and religious fabric of Japanese society. The stories of their brutality weren't just campfire tales, they were sermons. They were a vivid, frightening reminder that your actions had consequences, not just in this life, but in the next. The casual cruelty of their existence was a lesson in piety and a warning against transgression. And what about their physical appearance, the horns, the fangs, the wild hair? They weren't just for show. The horns are often thought to be a nod to the fact that they are born in the direction of the northeast, a cardinal direction known as Kimon, the demon gate. This direction was considered a source of evil and bad luck. The horns and tiger skin loincloths are also related to this concept, as the northeast direction is associated with the ox and the tiger in the Chinese zodiac. So, their very existence, their physical form, is a geographical and spiritual manifestation of evil. That's a truly chilling thought, that a monster's very being is tied to a specific, cursed place on a map. Historians still debate whether the earliest depictions of Oni were inspired by foreign figures, perhaps from Indian mythology, or even the early interactions with foreigners from other parts of Asia. It's a fun little historical puzzle. Did they see a fearsome demon in a scroll from a Buddhist monk from Korea? And did that image stick, or did the stories of foreign pirates and raiders inspire the image of a giant, terrifying brute? It's a question without a clear answer, and it allows the myths to evolve and shift over time, which is just part of the fun. Now, let's fast forward a bit. As their legend grew, the Oni weren't just confined to the underworld. They started to show up in the human world, acting as metaphors for everything from famine and disease to powerful, corrupt warlords. They became the physical manifestation of things that society feared most. You hear a story about a village being plagued by a giant, man-eating Oni. And it's not just a story about a monster, it's a story about a local lord who is taxing the people into starvation. The Oni isn't just a beast, it's a symbol of unchecked power and greed. There's a famous story about a samurai warrior named Minamoto no Yorimitsu, who, along with his 4 faithful retainers, fights and defeats a particularly vicious Oni named Shutondoji. This Oni lived on a mountain and would raid the capital city, Kyoto, to kidnap young women and eat them. The story is a classic example of a hero slaying a monster tale, but it also reflects the very real fear of lawlessness and violence that existed in a fractured, feudal Japan. The Oni represents chaos, and the samurai represents order. The hero's triumph isn't just a win for good over evil, it's a win for a stable, peaceful society over the wild, untamed forces of nature and humanity. So, when your grandmother is telling you to stay inside, she's not just talking about a fairy tale, she's talking about 1,000 years of history, 1,000 years of fear, and 1,000 years of stories that have been used to shape and control a society. The Oni are a brutal, terrifying force, and they're also a masterpiece of cultural storytelling. They are the perfect embodiment of everything that is dangerous and chaotic in the world, and they're a warning that, no matter how safe you think you are, there is always something lurking just beyond the edge of the light. You close your eyes and you can almost see it, the flickering firelight, the old woman's fearful face, and the shadows dancing on the wall. The wind outside howls again, and you can almost hear a low, growling laugh carried on the breeze. The Oni are out there. They're always out there, and for now, you are safe, tucked away in your warm bed. But the stories, those stories, they have a way of lingering, of seeping into your dreams. They are the kinds of stories that you never truly forget, the kind that make you just a little bit afraid of the dark, even when you're all grown up. You're safe in your bed now, but the wind hasn't stopped its whispers. It carries new shapes and shadows with it, stories of creatures not of brute force and iron clubs, but of sly cunning and magical deception. You pull the covers up a little higher, your mind wandering from the hulking red figures of the Oni to a more subtle, more terrifying monster, one that smiles at you from a beautiful face before it tears your very soul from your body. We're talking about the Kitsune. These fox spirits are, in many ways, the inverse of the Oni, where the Oni are raw, visible power. The Kitsune are all about psychological horror and a beautiful, terrifying grace. They are the shapeshifters, the illusionists, and the manipulators of the spiritual world. The word kitsune simply means fox in Japanese, but in folklore, it refers to something far more sinister and ancient. Their story is a tale of a creature that can be both a benevolent guardian of shrines and a brutal, soul-devouring trickster. The duality is what makes them so unsettling. You never know which version of the kitsune you've encountered until it's far too late. The central mythology of the kitsune is built on a few core principles. They are intelligent, long-lived, and gain power and wisdom with age. This wisdom is often symbolized by the number of tails they have. A young kitsune might have one tail, but a truly ancient and powerful one that has lived for hundreds, even thousands of years, will have 9. A 9-tailed fox, or Kyubi no Kitsune, is a mythical force of nature, a creature of such immense power that it can bend reality to its will. But their power is not just about raw magical strength, it's about deception. The most famous ability of the kitsune is their capacity for shape-shifting. They can take on human form, often that of a beautiful woman, a seductress whose charm and grace are simply an elaborate trap. Imagine you're a traveller, caught in a lonely mountain pass as a storm rolls in. A beautiful woman appears, offering you shelter in her home. You'd be relieved, wouldn't you? You'd be charmed by her hospitality, perhaps a little too charmed. The house might feel warm, the food delicious, and her company intoxicating. But you're not in a house, you're huddled in a hollow log, and she's a kitsune, slowly draining your life force with every story she tells, with every sip of the phantom tea she offers. This is the brutal nature of the kitsune. It's not a quick, violent death. It's a slow, psychological torture, a deception so complete that you don't even realize you're dying until the sun rises and you're nothing but a withered husk. The fox spirit's lore is deeply tied to the Shinto deity Inari, the god of rice, fertility, and prosperity. Inari shrines are everywhere in Japan, and they are almost always guarded by stone statues of foxes. These are the good kitsune, the ones who act as messengers for the gods and bring good harvests. They are symbols of good fortune and protection. This is an important historical truth. The kitsune's mythos is a great example of a creature existing on a moral spectrum. This is a far cry from the one-note brutality of the oni. A kitsune could be a guardian, a loyal servant, a friend, but they could also be a malevolent spirit, a liar and a murderer. The line is thin, and the true horror is never knowing which side of the line you're on. What's even more chilling is the idea that a kitsune can possess a human. This is known as kitsunetsuki, or fox possession in this state. The fox spirit takes over a person's mind and body, driving them to madness or strange behaviour. The possessed person might speak in a different voice, eat things they normally wouldn't like fried tofu, a kitsune favourite, or run naked through the streets, gibbering about prophecies in ancient Japan. Doctors might treat this as a medical condition, but often the victims were taken to Shinto priests who would perform exorcisms. This is a wonderfully strange and morbid detail. The belief was so widespread that there were established cultural practices to deal with it. Kitsunetsuki was often an explanation for mental illness, a way to make sense of something that was otherwise terrifying and unexplainable. It gave a name and a face to the horror of losing your own mind. Historians still debate whether the stories of Kitsunetsuki were a way for women, in particular, to express dissent or escape societal pressures in a highly structured feudal society. By claiming to be possessed by a fox spirit, a woman might be able to act out in ways that would otherwise be forbidden, giving her a voice in a society that worked to silence her. Was it a genuine belief, a form of hysteria, or a proto-feminist rebellion? It's a compelling and unresolved question that makes the myth even more complex. A casual modern commentary. Can you imagine telling your boss you can't come to work because you've been possessed by a fox spirit? It's a tempting thought. Isn't it? Though I'm not sure it would hold up in a court of law. One of the best-known tales of a brutal Kitsune is the story of Tamamo no Mae. She was a beautiful and brilliant courtesan who served the Emperor Konoe in the 12th century. She was so smart and beautiful that the Emperor fell madly in love with her. He showered her with gifts and praise, and she seemed to bring him great joy. But soon after she arrived, the Emperor began to fall ill, and his health rapidly declined. A court astronomer determined that the illness was caused by a malevolent spirit, and when they performed a ritual, Tamamo no Mae was revealed to be a 9-tailed fox spirit in disguise. She had been slowly draining the Emperor's life force to increase her own power. A truly brutal and insidious form of murder. She fled, of course, and was hunted down and killed by the Emperor's best warriors, but not before she transformed into a poisonous stone that would kill anyone who touched it. This stone, the Seshoseki, or killing stone, is said to still exist today. The legend of Tamamo no Mae shows the full, brutal extent of the Kitsune's cruelty. They don't just kill you, they toy with you. They build a relationship of trust and affection. They make you fall in love, and then they use that love to destroy you from the inside out. They don't want a quick death. They want a long, drawn-out affair, a grand performance of deception and emotional manipulation. It's a truly chilling form of evil, one that preys on the most fundamental parts of human nature, our need for love and connection. So, when you see a cute little fox statue at a Shinto shrine, remember the other side of the story. Remember the hungry, ancient spirit that lies just beneath the surface. It's a creature of immense beauty and immense cruelty. A trickster who can give you a bountiful harvest with one hand while it devours your soul with the other. The Kitsune is a symbol of the duality of nature, of the delicate balance between good and evil, and a constant, unnerving reminder that the most dangerous monsters are the ones you never see coming. They're the ones who look just like us, and maybe, in the right light, even more beautiful. And as you settle deeper into your pillow, you can almost hear a faint, fox-like giggle echoing in the distance. Is it just the wind, or is it a sign that something is watching you, calculating, and waiting for the right moment to make its move? The fox spirit's deceptive beauty and sinister cunning are now a faint memory, a shadow on the edge of your mind, but as you drift deeper, the sound of water begins to fill your ears, the low, gurgling sound of a river or a stream. You feel a cool, damp breeze on your face, and the scent of moss and wet earth hangs in the air. We are leaving the forests and mountains behind, and we're wading into the dark, murky waters of Japanese folklore. And here, in these quiet pools and fast-flowing rivers, lives a creature that is both strangely comical and brutally terrifying, the kappa. The kappa are a different kind of monster, unlike the hulking oni or the seductive kitsune. They are often depicted as small, amphibious humanoids, no bigger than a child. They have a turtle-like beak, a shell on their back, and webbed hands and feet. The most distinctive feature of the kappa, and the source of their power, is a small, bowl-shaped depression on the top of their head, a sort of natural indentation that holds water. This is a crucial detail as long as this dish is full of water. The kappa is strong and powerful. If the water spills out, the kappa becomes weak and helpless. This is an important historical truth that gives us a glimpse into the creative, and often practical, mind of ancient Japanese storytellers. But don't let their goofy appearance fool you. While they are often portrayed in modern media as mischievous, harmless creatures who love cucumbers, their true mythological nature is much, much darker. The kappa are brutal water demons. They are known for drowning people and animals, especially children. They would hide in the riverbeds, waiting for an unsuspecting victim to get too close to the water's edge. With incredible strength, they would pull their victims into the depths, often to dismember them or, in some of the more gruesome accounts, to pull out a mythical organ known as the shirokadama from their anus. The shirokadama was said to be a spiritual jewel or ball that contained the person's soul, and the kappa would feast on it, a truly chilling and uniquely specific detail that gives you a vivid sense of the absolute horror these creatures embodied. The brutality of the kappa myths serves a clear, practical purpose. These stories were not just for entertainment. They were a direct warning to children and adults alike about the very real dangers of swimming in rivers, lakes, and ponds. Think about it, ancient Japan, like many places, had a lot of rivers and bodies of water. Kids would play near them, people would cross them. The risk of drowning was very real. So, instead of simply saying, "Don't go near the water," the local storyteller would weave a terrifying tale of a turtle-like demon that would drag you down and eat your soul. It's a very effective, very brutal safety lesson. There is a fascinating little detail about the kappa that shows a surprising way to defeat them, because they are so polite. A person could defeat a kappa by simply bowing to it, when the kappa, as a matter of courtesy, bowed back. The water in its head dish would spill out, and the creature would be rendered powerless. It's a fun and light-hearted element in an otherwise dark myth, a kind of cultural quirk that makes the stories even more memorable. It suggests a balance, a way for a clever human to outsmart a much stronger creature. It's a recurring theme in many folklore traditions, the smaller, weaker hero triumphing over the bigger, badder monster with intelligence and quick thinking. Now, let's talk about the kappa's obsession with cucumbers. This is a widely known detail, but the reason behind it is still a bit of a mystery. One theory is that cucumbers were sometimes offered as a sacrifice to the kappa to appease them and prevent them from harming people. People would throw cucumbers into the river with their names written on them as a kind of offering, a way to say, "Here, have this delicious cucumber, and please don't drown me." Another theory suggests that the smell of cucumbers is a natural repellent for them. Either way, it's a quirky little detail that has made its way into modern Japanese culture, where kappa are often associated with cucumbers and are seen as harmless figures. This is a good example of how a brutal myth can soften and change over time, turning a water-dwelling child-eater into a character on a cartoon. But let's not forget the darker side. The kappa were also known for being rapacious and sexually aggressive, sometimes kidnapping women and forcing them to become their wives. There are also stories of kappa engaging in a human sacrifice. In some villages, it was believed that a certain number of drownings each year were necessary to appease the kappa, a belief that is chilling to its very core. It's a brutal and horrifying thought, that a community would willingly sacrifice its own members to a monster to protect the rest of the village. This is another area where historians still debate whether these stories were a way to explain real-life tragedies, or if they were a reflection of genuine, albeit rare, acts of human sacrifice that existed in some ancient communities. Remember that historical truth we talked about? The kappa myths are a perfect example. They were a vivid and terrifying way to explain the dangers of nature, a warning to children about the real dangers of playing in the water. They were the personification of the cold, merciless power of a strong current, or the sudden depth of a seemingly shallow pond. They are the monster at the bottom of the lake, waiting for you to get too close. You can almost feel the cold, slimy touch of a webbed hand on your ankle. You can almost see the glint of a beaky mouth, grinning from the murky depths. You can almost hear the low, gurgling laughter of a creature that wants nothing more than to pull you under and eat your soul. It's a truly unsettling feeling, isn't it? The thought that something so bizarre and almost ridiculous on the surface could be so profoundly and brutally evil underneath. But for now, you're safe, you're dry, and the sounds of the gurgling river and the cool, damp air are just echoes in your mind. The kappa is waiting, but he's waiting for someone else, somewhere else, in a long-lost time and a long-lost place. The unsettling whisper of the river and the chilling image of the kappa's empty gaze are now behind you. The darkness around you feels different now, less about the vast, open spaces of nature and more about the tight, enclosed spaces of a home. You are no longer a traveller in a wild world, but a person tucked away in a quiet house, a house where the warmth of the hearth and the comfort of your bed should bring you peace. But in ancient Japan, even your own home wasn't safe from the terrifying, brutal reality of the yokai. Tonight, we're going to talk about a monster that might be sitting right next to you, a creature that is beautiful by day and a horrifying abomination by night, the Rokurakubi. The Rokurakubi is one of the most uniquely disturbing yokai, unlike the Oni or the Kitsune, who are clearly not human. The Rokurakubi lives a normal, human life by day. She is just like any other woman, a wife, a mother, a friend, a neighbour. She works, she laughs, she loves, but when darkness falls and everyone is asleep, her true nature is revealed. Her neck, with a sickening stretch and a horrifying pop, elongates and extends, snaking through the house in search of her prey. Her head, still attached, becomes a separate, malevolent entity, a ghost in her own home. This is a key part of the myth. The transformation is not something she can control. The Rokurakubi is often depicted as a woman who has a curse or a condition that she must hide from the world. She is a victim of her own monstrous nature, a person who lives in constant fear that her secret will be revealed. This is a wonderfully strange and morbid detail, isn't it? The horror isn't just in the long neck, but in the psychological torment of living a lie. Imagine the paranoia, the fear of being discovered, the constant anxiety of going to sleep. This is a truly brutal psychological horror, a curse that punishes the victim as much as it does the prey. The legend of the Rokurakubi has a few variations in some stories. The woman is a descendant of a family cursed by a yokai. In others, she has been turned into a Rokurakubi as a punishment for some transgression, perhaps for breaking a religious vow or for being too promiscuous. This is a great example of a historical truth. Yokai stories were often used as a way to enforce social norms. Don't be a liar, don't be a cheater, don't break your vows. Why? Because you might become a monster, and a monster that lives in constant shame and fear. It's a very effective moral lesson, and a much more terrifying one than just being grounded. The act of the Rokurakubi feeding is where the true horror lies. They don't just kill, they steal. They feed on the life force of their victims, or they lick the oil out of the paper lanterns, a detail that feels both mundane and profoundly unsettling. The act of stealing a person's life force is a common theme in yokai lore, but the method here is what sets it apart. The long slithering neck, the detached head, it's a violation of the natural order of the body. It's a terrifying image of a person being completely unravelled, their very being becoming a tool for a monstrous purpose. A popular and unsettling tale involves a man who marries a beautiful woman, only to discover her secret one night. He wakes to see her neck stretched out, her head sniffing around the room. In one version, he tries to pull her neck back, but it's like a snake, strong and unyielding. In another, he watches in silent terror as her head floats back to her body, and she is a normal woman again by morning. He spends the rest of his life living in fear, unable to confront her, unable to leave her. It's a powerful and disturbing image of a toxic relationship, a marriage built on a terrifying secret. This is a great little detail to show the depth of the horror. It's not just a monster you can fight, it's a person you love, a person you've sworn to protect, who is also a monster. Now, a fun fact, and a bit of a casual commentary. Imagine trying to tell your friends about this. Yeah, my wife is great. She makes a killer bento box, but you should see her neck at night. It goes on forever. It's kind of a hassle when she's trying to get a snack from the top shelf, but it's a small price to pay for true love. Right? It's a ridiculous image, and yet the horror of the situation is still palpable. There's a similar yokai called the nukakubi, which is often confused with the rokurakubi. The difference is subtle but important. The rokurakubi's neck stretches, but the head remains attached. The nukakubi's head detaches completely, flying around like a ghost or a bat, sometimes with its entrails dangling from its neck. This is a crucial distinction. The rokurakubi is a victim, cursed with a horrifying condition. The nukakubi is often a malevolent spirit, a conscious and active predator, and the horror is in the sight of the flying head itself. It's a great example of how nuanced and specific yokai lore can be, with different names for different kinds of horrors. Historians still debate whether these myths were inspired by real-life medical conditions or strange folk beliefs. Could it be a way of explaining a strange sleepwalking habit or a rare genetic disorder? Or was it purely a product of a society that was so concerned with appearances and social order that the idea of a beautiful woman hiding a horrifying secret was the ultimate form of terror? It's a puzzle without a clear answer, but it's a fascinating one to think about. The rokurakubi is a creature that embodies the anxiety of the unknown, the fear of what lies beneath the surface of a seemingly normal life. So, as you lay in your bed, in the quiet of your own home, you can't help but wonder, is that a floorboard creaking? Or is it the sound of a neck stretching? Is that a shadow on the wall? Or is it the long, serpentine form of a rokurakubi, searching for a late-night snack? The horror of this yokai is that it forces you to look at the people you know and love and ask yourself, do I really know them? What secrets do they hide? What monstrous truth lies beneath the beautiful facade they present to the world? The rokurakubi is the horror in the silence of your own home, the monster that is both a victim and a predator, a chilling reminder that sometimes the most terrifying thing in the world is not the monster that lives in the wild, but the one that lives right next to you. The image of the rokurakubi's stretching neck and the quiet terror of a secret kept within one's own home slowly fade, replaced now by a sense of profound cold. The air around you seems to grow still and thin, the kind of stillness that precedes a heavy snowfall. You can almost feel the bite of the wind, the way it stings your cheeks and numbs your fingers. We are leaving the comfort of the indoors and venturing into the desolate, frozen landscapes of the north. Here, where the mountains are blanketed in white and the air itself can kill you, a different kind of monster lurks, a monster of breathtaking beauty and a heart of ice, the Yuki-onna. The Yuki-onna, or Snow Woman, is one of the most iconic and tragically beautiful yokai. She appears as a tall, graceful woman with impossibly long black hair and a skin so pale it seems to be made of snow. She's often seen wearing a white kimono, so that she blends seamlessly with the frozen landscape around her. Her beauty is said to be otherworldly, and her gaze can mesmerize any mortal man who dares to look upon her. But her beauty is a deceptive, brutal trap, for her kiss is not one of love, but of death. The central story of the Yuki-onna is that she is the spirit of the snow, a manifestation of winter itself. She is cold, lonely, and without emotion, a force of nature that is as beautiful as it is deadly. She preys on the travellers who get lost in snowstorms, using her ethereal beauty to lure them to their demise. Her breath, a frosty vapour, can freeze a person solid in an instant. Her touch is ice, and her embrace is a final, cold hug from which there is no escape. This is a wonderfully strange and morbid detail. The Yuki-onna is a personification of death by exposure, a way to explain the very real and brutal danger of being caught in a winter blizzard. Think about it, ancient Japan had harsh winters. People would get lost in the mountains. They would freeze to death. The Yuki-onna is a great example of a historical truth. Instead of simply saying, he froze to death, the storytellers would say. He was kissed by the Yuki Onna. It's a much more poetic and terrifying way to explain a common, brutal tragedy. It gives a face to the cold, and a reason for the fear. The wind howling through the trees isn't just a sound, it's her sorrowful wail. The snow falling isn't just precipitation, it's her tears. The Yuki Onna turns a natural phenomenon into a personal, tragic event. There's a famous story about a woodcutter and his apprentice who are caught in a blizzard. They take shelter in a small hut, and in the middle of the night, a beautiful woman appears. She is the Yuki Onna. She breathes on the old woodcutter, freezing him instantly, but she spares the young apprentice on the condition that he never, ever tell anyone about her. He agrees, and she vanishes into the snow. The apprentice returns home, traumatized, but he keeps his promise years later. He marries a beautiful woman who is as pale as snow. They have a happy life and several children, but one night, as he looks at his sleeping wife, he can't help but remember the night of the blizzard. He tells her the story, finally breaking his promise. His wife's expression changes, and she is revealed to be the Yuki Onna herself. She chastises him for breaking his promise but spares his life for the sake of their children. She then vanishes into a swirl of snow, leaving him and his family to a life of sorrow and loneliness. This is a great example of the emotional complexity of the Yuki Onna myth. She is not just a killer, she is also a tragic figure. Her beauty and her deadly nature are inextricably linked to her loneliness and her sorrow. She is a being of profound sadness, a kind of ghost that yearns for a connection that she can never truly have. The brutal nature of her actions is always tempered by this underlying sadness. She kills not out of malice, but out of her very nature. She is the embodiment of a beautiful but deadly force of nature. A casual modern commentary. This story is basically a supernatural version of don't tell your partner about your exes. You can just see a guy telling his wife about the hot, deadly snow spirit he met, and her just giving him that I'm going to kill you look. It's a relatable human moment in an otherwise fantastical story. Another fascinating detail about the Yuki Onna is her connection to the moon. She's often said to be at her most powerful and beautiful on a clear, cold winter night when the moon is full. The moonlight illuminates her pale skin, and she seems to glow with an eerie, ethereal light. This is a beautiful image, and it ties the myth of the Yuki Onna to a natural cycle, a force of nature that is both beautiful and terrifying. The moon, with its cool light and distant presence, is the perfect backdrop for a creature of profound sadness and deadly beauty. Historians still debate whether the Yuki Onna myth is a truly Japanese creation, or if it was influenced by other cultures. Stories of beautiful, deadly women who lure men to their deaths are common in many cultures. From the sirens of Greek mythology to the succubi of European folklore, the Yuki Onna is a distinctly Japanese take on this archetype. But it's an interesting question to consider. Did the myth travel along the Silk Road, or was it a purely independent creation, a product of a culture that was deeply intertwined with the seasons and the land as you lay in your bed, a comfortable warm place far from the biting cold? You can almost see her. She's standing at your window, a pale figure in a white kimono. She's not smiling, and she's not frowning. Her face is a perfect, emotionless mask of tragic beauty. She's watching you, and her breath fogs the glass. For a moment, you can feel the profound sadness of her existence, the loneliness of a creature that can never know true warmth or love. And then, as quickly as she appeared, she's gone. A swirl of snow in the darkness, but the cold remains, a phantom chill that makes you pull your blankets up a little tighter, and a whisper of a story that you will never forget. The Yuki Onna's sad. Frozen beauty and the chill she left behind are now fading into a distant memory, replaced by a different kind of presence. This time, it's not a monster of raw power or ethereal beauty, but a creature of a more playful, and yet equally brutal, deception. The air no longer feels cold and still, but warm and a little mischievous, filled with the scent of sake and late-night revelry. We are entering the world of the Tanuki, a creature that looks like a lovable, bumbling raccoon dog, but whose myths hide a truly unsettling and malevolent side. The Tanuki is perhaps the most confusing of all the yokai in modern Japan. They are symbols of good luck and prosperity, often seen as statues outside restaurants and bars, wearing big hats and clutching a bottle of sake. They are known for their oversized testicles, which in folklore were said to be a source of magical power and could be stretched to incredible, comical lengths. This is a wonderfully bizarre and uniquely specific detail that is a great example of the kind of oddities you find in Japanese folklore, but the cheerful, bumbling image we have today is a far cry from the Tanuki's original, brutal nature. The Tanuki, like the Kitsune, is a master of deception and shape-shifting, while the Kitsune often used its powers for a grand, soul-devouring scheme. The Tanuki's tricks were often smaller in scale, but no less malicious. They would use their powers to trick people, often for a laugh, but the laughter was always at someone else's expense. They would transform leaves into fake money, convincing a traveller to trade his last coins for a useless handful of foliage. They would use illusions to create phantom feasts, luring a hungry person to a barren field and leaving them to starve. This is a great historical truth. The Tanuki stories were a way to explain petty crimes and small misfortunes. Did a farmer's crops disappear overnight? A Tanuki must have taken them. Did you get lost in the woods and think you saw a ghost? It was probably just a Tanuki pulling a prank. One of the most brutal and famous Tanuki stories is the tale of the cracking mountain, Kachi Yama. In this story, a farmer catches a mischievous Tanuki and plans to cook it. He leaves it in the care of his wife while he goes to work in the fields. The cunning Tanuki, however, weeps and begs the wife to free him, promising to be a good Tanuki from now on. The kind-hearted wife frees him, and the Tanuki, as a reward, bludgeons her to death with a club and makes a stew out of her. When the farmer returns home, the Tanuki serves him the stew. Convincing him it is his wife's creation, he only reveals the truth after the farmer has eaten it. The farmer is then helped by a rabbit, who seeks revenge for the brutal murder. The rabbit plays a series of brutal pranks on the Tanuki, eventually luring him onto a mud boat that sinks, drowning the evil creature. This story is a far cry from the modern image of the friendly Tanuki. It's a brutal tale of betrayal, murder, and cannibalism. It's a great example of the duality of the Tanuki's nature. On one hand, they are a symbol of good luck, but on the other, they are capable of incredible, casual cruelty. This is a crucial detail. The brutality isn't born of some grand, evil plan. It's just a part of their nature. They kill the wife not for a specific reason, but just because they can. The cruelty is random and unprovoked, which makes it all the more terrifying. Historians still debate whether the Tanuki myths were influenced by Chinese folklore. There are similar stories of shape-shifting raccoon dogs in China, and it's likely that the myth travelled along with other cultural imports. However, the Japanese Tanuki took on a life of its own, becoming a distinctly Japanese symbol of both mischief and good fortune. The emphasis on their magical scrotum and their love of sake are uniquely Japanese additions, a fun and slightly embarrassing detail that makes the Tanuki stand out from other mythical creatures. A casual modern commentary. Can you imagine the marketing meeting where someone suggested putting a statue of a creature with magical, oversized testicles outside their restaurant to attract customers? It's a bold choice. And it's a testament to how the Tanuki's modern image has completely overshadowed its brutal, murderous origins. It's like putting a statue of a serial killer clown outside a circus and hoping it attracts families. The Tanuki's brutality isn't always about violence. It can also be about a profound sense of psychological manipulation. They would use their illusions to make people lose their way, to wander for days in a forest that was only a few feet wide. They would create phantom sounds and visions, driving people to madness. This is a subtle, but no less brutal, form of torment. It's the horror of not being able to trust your own senses, of being completely at the mercy of a creature that finds your misery to be a great source of amusement. The Tengu is a perfect example of a yokai that embodies the unpredictable, chaotic side of nature. They are not a grand evil, but a small, persistent evil. They are the personification of the random, unprovoked misfortunes that can plague a person's life. They are the lost wallet, the broken tool, the meal that gets ruined for no reason. They are the little things that drive you crazy, and in their own way. They are just as terrifying as the oni or the kitsune. You can almost feel a low, rumbling chuckle in the distance, a sound that is both jovial and deeply unsettling. You can almost see a pair of beady, cunning eyes watching you from the shadows, a creature with a wide-brimmed hat and a bottle of sake in its hands, waiting for the perfect moment to play its next little prank. But you are safe, and the sound of the chuckle is just the wind, and the beady eyes are just a couple of leaves rustling in the dark. But for a moment, just a moment, you wonder if you should check your wallet, just to make sure. The Tengu's mischievous laughter and the unsettling tale of its casual brutality have faded, leaving you in a quiet, shadowy place. The air is no longer filled with the scent of sake, but with the cloying sweetness of jasmine and the faint, metallic scent of a spider's web. We are leaving the forests and villages behind, and we are entering the intimate, private spaces of human desire and deception. Here, in the quiet corners of ancient Japan, a different kind of monster waits, a monster that is the ultimate embodiment of a femme fatale, a creature of breathtaking beauty and profound, soul-crushing horror, the Jorogumo. The Jorogumo, which translates literally to entangling bride or prostitute spider, is a yokai that is both beautiful and terrifying. The myth is simple in its brutality. She is a spider that has lived for so long that she has gained supernatural powers, including the ability to transform into a beautiful, seductive woman. She uses this disguise to lure unsuspecting men into her lair, a hidden place where she can then reveal her true, monstrous form and devour them. The horror of the Jorogumo isn't in her size or strength, but in her patience and her cruel psychological manipulation. She is a predator that doesn't hunt with force, but with a web of lies and manufactured affection. A key detail in the myth is her lair. She doesn't just eat people in a dark alley. She weaves a home for them, a beautiful, comfortable place that is a deception in and of itself. The men she lures are not just victims. They are her prey, her playthings. She talks to them, she charms them, she makes them fall in love with her, she makes them believe they have found their perfect match, their true love, and only when they are completely entangled in her web of lies, when they are at their most vulnerable, does she strike. The brutal nature of the Jorogumo is in this slow, deliberate cruelty. She takes away a man's hope and his joy before she takes his life. There's a famous story about a young man who is walking by a waterfall when he hears a beautiful woman singing. He is enchanted by her voice and her beauty, and he follows her to a nearby cottage. They fall in love, and he spends his days with her, completely oblivious to the fact that he is trapped. His friends, worried about his disappearance, go to the waterfall to look for him. They see a single thread of spider silk stretching from the waterfall to the cottage. They follow the thread and find the cottage. When they look inside, they see their friend, a withered husk of a man, being slowly drained of his life force by a gigantic spider. The Jorogumo, seeing she has been discovered, transforms into a monstrous form and flees. This is a great example of a historical truth. Yōkai myths were often a way to explain the dangers of the world. In this case, the Jorogumo is a warning against the seductive power of a beautiful stranger. She is the personification of a woman who is not what she seems. A kind of ancient cautionary tale about the dangers of lust and unchecked desire. It's a very effective moral lesson, and a much more terrifying one than just being told to be careful. The Jorogumo is a creature that preys on a person's deepest desires and uses them as a weapon against them. One of the more unique details about the Jorogumo is her ability to control other spiders. She's not just a monster herself, but the queen of a monstrous army. She can command smaller spiders to do her bidding, to spin webs to trap her victims, and to keep them from escaping. This adds another layer of horror to the myth. It's not just one monster you have to face, but a whole army of them. It's a truly chilling thought, that every shadow and every corner of her lair is filled with 1,000 tiny monsters waiting to do her bidding. Historians still debate whether the Jorogumo myth was inspired by a real-life creature. The beautiful but deadly funnel web spider of Japan is a candidate, but there's no clear evidence. It's more likely that the myth is a product of a society that was deeply concerned with the dangers of temptation and the unpredictability of human nature. The spider, a creature that is both beautiful and terrifying, is the perfect metaphor for a woman who is not what she seems. A casual modern commentary. This story is basically the original catfishing nightmare. You think you're talking to a beautiful woman, and you're falling in love, but it's really just a giant spider that's going to eat you. It's a great reminder to always be a little suspicious of people you meet on the internet, and maybe to bring a can of spider spray with you on your dates, just in case. The Jorogumo's brutality isn't always physical. It can also be a brutal, emotional torment. She would often talk to her victims, spinning a web of lies about her life, her loves, and her sorrows. She would make them feel sorry for her, and she would use their sympathy to make them fall even more in love with her. This is a subtle, but no less brutal, form of torment. It's the horror of being completely manipulated, of having your emotions and your empathy used as a weapon against you. The Jorogumo is a creature that embodies the fear of betrayal, the fear of falling in love with the wrong person. She is the personification of a dangerous, toxic relationship. A love that is so all-consuming that it ends up destroying you. She is the monster in the beautiful, seductive woman, and she is a reminder that sometimes the most beautiful things in the world can also be the most deadly. You can almost feel the soft touch of a spider's silk on your skin, a phantom thread stretching from some unseen place. You can almost hear the soft, melodic singing of a beautiful woman, her voice an enchanting melody that promises love and happiness. But in the back of your mind, a little voice whispers a warning, a voice that knows the truth. The beautiful woman is a monster, and the love she offers is just a web. And for a moment, just a moment, you feel a deep, chilling sense of dread. The chilling song of the Jorogumo and the unsettling image of her tangled web have faded, but the fear of spiders remains, a primal, ancient dread. The ground beneath you now feels solid, cold, and a little damp, and the air is heavy with the scent of deep earth and stone. We're leaving the sunlit world behind and delving into the forgotten, subterranean passages of ancient Japan. Here, in the dark, where the world of man meets the world of myth, lives a creature so old and so monstrous that its name is now a whisper. A forgotten horror, the Tsuchigumo. The Tsuchigumo, which translates to earth spider, is a yokai that is both a monster and a powerful metaphor. In its most literal form, it is a gigantic, monstrous spider that lives in the depths of the earth, often in caves or forgotten tombs. It has a spider's body, but with the head of a man and long, hairy legs that can ensnare and crush its victims. This is a wonderfully strange and morbid detail that shows the creativity of ancient storytellers. It's a hybrid monster, a fusion of two primal fears, the spider, a creature that is both alien and unsettling, and the man, a creature that is capable of incredible cruelty and violence. But the Tsuchigumo is more than just a giant spider. It's also a derogatory term used by the ancient Japanese court to refer to the various clans and tribes that resisted imperial rule. These tribes, often living in the mountains and remote areas, were seen as primitive, wild, and uncivilized. The court, in an act of political and cultural subjugation, would call them Tsuchigumo, or earth spiders, a way to dehumanize them and paint them as monsters. This is a crucial detail, a great example of a historical truth. The Tsuchigumo is a monster in the two ways. It's a physical horror, and it's a political one. It's a monster that exists in the realm of myth, and a monster that exists in the realm of history. The brutality of the Tsuchigumo is in its scale, is not a small, deceptive monster like the Kitsune or the Tengu. It's a force of nature, a giant beast that can tear through a village and devour its inhabitants in a single night. The stories of the Tsuchigumo are often epic in scale, involving great samurai warriors who must descend into the earth to fight the beast in its lair. The stories are filled with heroic battles, a testament to the courage and strength of the human spirit against a truly overwhelming, monstrous evil. There's a famous story, one we also mentioned in the context of the Oni, about the samurai warrior Minamoto no Yorimitsu. He, along with his faithful retainers, fights and defeats a Tsuchigumo that had been causing a plague in the capital city. The Tsuchigumo, in this story, is not just a monster. It's a symbol of a disease, a creeping unseen evil that is slowly killing the people. The samurai's battle against the Tsuchigumo is a symbolic battle against the plague itself, a heroic effort to save the people from a brutal and invisible killer. The story is a classic example of a hero slaying a monster tale, but it also reflects the very real fear of disease and pestilence that existed in ancient Japan. The Tsuchigumo is the perfect monster for this role. It's a creature that lives in the dark, in the unseen places, and its venom is a metaphor for the sickness that can spread through a community, killing people one by one. The brutal nature of the Tsuchigumo is in this quiet, unseen killing, a horror that is more insidious than a single, violent act. Another fascinating detail about the Tsuchigumo is its ability to spin webs that are not just for trapping, but for magical illusion. It could create a fake, beautiful city in the middle of a barren mountain, luring travellers to their doom. It could create a phantom army, confusing and terrifying its enemies. This is a great example of the Tsuchigumo's hybrid nature. It's a monster of brute force, but it's also a monster of deception. It's a creature that can crush you with its strength, but it can also trick you into a false sense of security, a false sense of hope, and then crush you. A casual modern commentary. This is basically the original "Don't trust the free Wi-Fi" story. You think you've found a beautiful, safe place to rest, but it's really just a giant spider waiting to eat you. It's a great reminder to always be a little suspicious of things that seem too good to be true. Historians still debate the origins of the Tsuchigumo myth. Was it a story of a real-life creature? A giant spider that once roamed the mountains of Japan? Or was it purely a political creation? A way to demonize a people and a culture that the imperial court feared? It's a puzzle without a clear answer, and it allows the myth to exist in both the realm of fantasy and the realm of historical fact. The Tsuchigumo is a monster that reminds us that history is often written by the victors, and that the monsters we are told to fear are often just people who are different from us. The Tsuchigumo's brutality is in its sheer, overwhelming power. It's a creature that you can't outsmart with a clever trick or a polite bow. It's a creature that you have to fight with all your might, a monster that embodies the very real and brutal dangers of the world. It is the earthquakes, the landslides, the plagues, and the wars that can tear a society apart. It is the monster that lives in the dark. And it is a monster that reminds us that sometimes the only way to defeat a monster is to fight it head on. You can almost feel the cold, damp earth beneath you, and you can almost hear the low, rumbling sounds of a monstrous creature moving in the deep. The Tsuchigumo is out there, a forgotten horror, a monster of both myth and history, and for a moment, just a moment, you feel a deep, chilling sense of dread, the dread of a monster that is both a giant spider and a political enemy, a monster that reminds us that the line between a person and a monster is often just a matter of perspective. The Tsuchigumo's rumbling horror and the ancient fear of the earth have faded, but the sound of water returns, a gentle, lapping rhythm that is both soothing and profoundly unsettling. We are back near the rivers and streams, but this time, the monster is not a bumbling kappa. This monster is a thing of profound, unsettling beauty and a brutal, deceptive cruelty. We're talking about the Nura Onna, a yokai that is both a serpentine woman and a monstrous predator. The Nura Onna, which translates to wet woman, is a creature that is often described as having the head of a beautiful woman and the body of a serpent, often with the length of a few 100 feet. She is usually seen near a body of water, combing her long, dark hair. This is a crucial detail, the act of combing hair. A simple, mundane human act is a deceptive lure, a way to make her seem harmless and beautiful, but the beauty is a facade, a cruel trap that hides a profound and brutal evil. The horror of the Nura Onna is in this duality, in the way she uses a symbol of femininity and grace to lure her victims to their death. The central mythology of the Nura Onna is built on a chilling act of deception. She is often seen with a bundle of cloth in her arms, which, from a distance, looks like a small child. She will call out to a man, asking him to hold her child for a moment while she rests or continues to comb her hair. If the man agrees and takes the bundle, he will soon discover that it is not a child at all, but a heavy, unyielding rock that he cannot put down, and as he struggles with the rock, the Nura Onna reveals her true and monstrous form and devours him. This is a great example of a historical truth. The Nura Onna myth is a perfect cautionary tale about the dangers of helping a beautiful stranger. In ancient Japan, where people often travelled alone and the world was full of unknown dangers, this story would have been a powerful warning. Don't trust the beautiful woman on the side of the road. Don't be too quick to help a stranger, especially a beautiful one. It's a very effective moral lesson, and a much more terrifying one than just being told to be careful. The Nura Onna preys on a man's sense of chivalry and his desire to help a woman in distress, using his good nature as a weapon against him. The brutality of the Nura Onna is in the slow, agonizing nature of her trap. She doesn't just kill a person, she puts them in a position where they are completely helpless, where they are struggling with a burden that they can't put down. The rock is a symbol of this helplessness, a weight that a man can't escape. It's a brutal, psychological torture, a way to make a man feel completely powerless before she devours him. The horror of the Nura Onna is in this profound sense of entrapment, the feeling of being completely at the mercy of a monster that has no mercy at all. There is a fascinating little detail about the Nura Onna that makes her even more terrifying. She is often associated with the Ushi Oni, or ox demon, a brutal and powerful yokai that is often depicted as a monstrous, ox-headed spider, or a creature with the head of an ox and the body of a spider. The Nura Onna is sometimes said to be the Ushi Oni's servant, or to work in tandem with it. She would lure the victim, and the Ushi Oni would do the devouring. This adds another layer of horror to the myth. It's not just one monster you have to face, but a whole team of them. It's a great example of how yokai lore can be interconnected, with different monsters working together to create a more terrifying and complex tapestry of horror. Historians still debate the origins of the Nure-onna myth. Was she a personification of the dangers of water, a way to explain drownings and other water-related tragedies, or was she a product of a society that was deeply concerned with the dangers of temptation and the unpredictability of human nature? It's a puzzle without a clear answer, but it's a fascinating one to think about. The Nure-onna is a monster that embodies the fear of the unknown, the fear of a world where beauty can be a lie and a helpful gesture can be a fatal mistake. A casual modern commentary. This story is basically the original "Don't let a beautiful stranger put a mysterious package in your hands" tale. It's a great reminder to always be a little suspicious of people who are too beautiful and too friendly, and maybe to carry a backpack with a sturdy strap, just in case. The Nure-onna's brutality isn't always about killing. It can also be a brutal, emotional torment. She would often talk to her victims, her voice a soft, melodic sound that promised love and happiness. She would make them feel sorry for her, and she would use their sympathy to make them fall even more in love with her. This is a subtle, but no less brutal, form of torment. It's the horror of being completely manipulated, of having your emotions and your empathy used as a weapon against you. The Nure-onna is a creature that embodies the fear of betrayal, the fear of falling in love with the wrong person. She is the personification of a dangerous, toxic relationship. A love that is so all-consuming that it ends up destroying you. She is the monster in the beautiful, seductive woman. And she is a reminder that sometimes the most beautiful things in the world can also be the most deadly. You can almost feel the soft touch of her serpent-like scales on your skin, a phantom touch that sends a shiver down your spine. You can almost hear her voice, a beautiful, melodic sound that promises love and happiness. But in the back of your mind, a little voice whispers a warning, a voice that knows the truth. The beautiful woman is a monster, and the child she offers is just a rock. And for a moment, just a moment, you feel a deep, chilling sense of dread. The chilling image of the Nure-onna and the unsettling weight of her child have finally vanished. And a profound silence falls, the stories of the great and terrible Yōkai, the hulking Oni, the deceptive Kitsune, the brutal Kappa, the cursed Rokurokubi, the tragic Yuki-onna, the mischievous Tanuki, the seductive Jorogumo, the terrifying Tsuchigumo, and the deceiving Nure-onna, all of them recede into the shadows of your mind, a tapestry of beautiful and brutal horrors. But the world of Yōkai is vast, and there are many more creatures, many more stories. For our final chapter, we're going to take a whirlwind tour of some of the lesser-known but equally brutal Yōkai, a final glimpse into the shared anxieties and profound fears of ancient Japan. We begin our journey with the Gashadokuro, which translates to starving skeleton. The myth is as simple and as terrifying as it sounds. The Gashadokuro is a giant skeleton, 100 times the size of a man, that is made from the bones of people who have died of starvation and were never given a proper burial. It wanders the countryside at night, its bones rattling, and it preys on unsuspecting travellers. The horror of the Gashadokuro is in its scale and its sound. It is a creature so large that it can't be seen in its entirety, only as a giant, clattering skeleton that looms over the trees and the rooftops, and the only warning you have of its presence is the sound of its bones rattling, a sound that is 100 times louder than any man-made noise. This is a great example of a historical truth. The Gashadokuro is a personification of the very real and brutal fear of famine and starvation. In a world where food was not always plentiful, the idea of a giant skeleton made of the bones of the starving would have been a terrifying and powerful image. It's a symbol of the ultimate tragedy, the ultimate end of a life without dignity or respect. It's a monster that reminds us that sometimes the most terrifying monsters are born not of magic, but of human suffering. Next, we encounter the Okaroku, a kind of yokai that is not a monster in a physical sense, but a spiritual one. The Okaroku are the spirits of the dead, but not just any dead. They are the spirits of those who have died of extreme anger or a deep sense of injustice. They are often seen as a fiery, red-faced spirit with a furious expression, and they haunt the places where they died. Their rage so intense that it can cause a fire or a plague. This is a wonderfully strange and morbid detail. The Okaroku is a yokai that is not born of a physical form, but of a purely emotional one. It's a monster that reminds us that sometimes the most dangerous things in the world are not physical, but emotional. This is a great example of historical truth. The Okaroku is a personification of the very real fear of social unrest and political injustice. In a world where a person could be killed for a minor transgression or a false accusation, the idea of a spirit that is born of a deep sense of injustice would have been a powerful and terrifying image. It's a monster that reminds us that sometimes the most terrifying monsters are not born of magic, but of human cruelty. We continue our journey with the Makura Gaeshi, or pillow flipper. This is a yokai that is not a killer, but a prankster. The Makura Gaeshi is a yokai that comes into your room at night and flips your pillow over while you're sleeping. This is a subtle, but no less brutal, form of torment. It's the horror of waking up in the middle of the night, in the dark, and not knowing what happened. It's the feeling of being watched, of being completely at the mercy of a creature that finds your misery to be a great source of amusement. This is a great example of a historical truth. The Makura Gaeshi is a personification of the very real and mundane anxieties of everyday life. It's the feeling of being watched, the feeling of being vulnerable, the feeling of not being in control. It's a monster that reminds us that sometimes the most terrifying monsters are not born of magic, but of the anxieties and fears that we all carry with us every day. And now, for our final yokai, we encounter the Onryo. The Onryo is not a physical monster, but a ghost. But not just any ghost. The Onryo is the ghost of a person who died with a deep sense of vengeance. The Onryo is a ghost that is so filled with rage and hatred that it can manifest in the physical world, causing plagues, fires, and all sorts of other calamities. The Onryo is often depicted as a pale-faced, long-haired ghost in a white kimono, and its presence is often accompanied by a sense of profound cold and dread. This is a truly chilling and unique detail. The Onryo is not just a monster, it is a force of nature, a kind of spiritual plague that can destroy a community. This is a great example of a historical truth. The Onryo is a personification of the very real and brutal fear of social injustice and the power of the human spirit. In a world where a person could be killed for a minor transgression or a false accusation, the idea of a ghost that is born of a deep sense of injustice would have been a powerful and terrifying image. It's a monster that reminds us that sometimes the most terrifying monsters are not born of magic, but of human cruelty. All of these yokai, from the terrifying Gashadokuro to the vengeful Onryo, have one thing in common. They are all a reflection of the fears and anxieties of the people who created them. They are all a way to explain the unexplainable, to give a name and a face to the things that go bump in the night. They are a beautiful and brutal tapestry of human history. A reminder that the line between a monster and a person is often just a matter of perspective. The final whispers of the Gashadokuro and the cold dread of the Onryo have now settled into the quiet corners of your mind. The journey through the brutal myths of Japanese yokai is coming to an end. You have travelled far, from the dark, smoky halls of ancient villages to the desolate, frozen mountains, from the deep, murky waters of forgotten rivers to the intimate, shadowy corners of a home. You have met monsters of brute force and subtle deception, of tragic beauty and casual cruelty. Each one was a reflection of the fears, anxieties, and hopes of a people who lived in a world where the line between the natural and the supernatural was as thin as a single thread. This journey has been a testament to the power of storytelling. These myths, these terrifying and beautiful tales, were not just for entertainment. They were a moral compass, a safety guide, and a way to make sense of a world that was often chaotic and unpredictable. The Oni, with their iron clubs and their hellish purpose, were a brutal reminder of the consequences of a life of sin. They were the perfect instrument of divine justice, and a vivid, frightening lesson in piety. The Kitsune, with their seductive beauty and their cunning deceit, were a cautionary tale about the dangers of appearances. They were a warning that the most beautiful things in the world can also be the most deadly, and that trust is a fragile thing. The Kappa, with their love of cucumbers and their brutal habit of drowning people, were a vivid and terrifying safety lesson, a way to keep children and adults alike away from the dangerous currents of a river. The Rokurokubi, with their stretching necks and their double lives, were a powerful and disturbing image of the secrets that people hide and the anxieties that a person can carry in their heart. The Yuki Onna, with her tragic beauty and her freezing breath, was a personification of the cold and unforgiving nature of a winter blizzard, a way to give a name and a face to a natural tragedy. The Tanuki, with their mischievous pranks and their casual cruelty, were a reflection of the small, random misfortunes that can plague a person's life. The Jirogamo, with her beautiful song and her deadly web, was a brutal and terrifying warning about the dangers of a stranger and the seductive power of lust. The Tsuchigumo, with its monstrous size and its political undertones, was a reminder that the monsters we are told to fear are often just people who are different from us. The Nur Onna, with her beautiful face and her serpentine body, was a powerful and disturbing image of the dangers of a beautiful lie. And in our final chapter, you met the Gashadokuro, a monster born of famine and suffering, a reminder of the fragility of life. The Okoroku, a monster born of anger and injustice, a reminder of the power of the human spirit. The Makura Gaishi, a monster born of the small anxieties of everyday life, a reminder that the most terrifying things can be the most mundane. And finally, the Onryo, a monster born of vengeance, a reminder that the dead can hold a grudge that is so powerful it can destroy the living. Each of these myths is a piece of a larger puzzle, a single thread in a vast tapestry of a culture's fears and anxieties. They are a testament to the power of the human imagination, a way to make sense of a world that was often chaotic, brutal, and unpredictable. They are a reminder that the monsters we are told to fear are often just a reflection of the monsters that lie dormant within us. They are a beautiful and brutal part of human history, a reminder that the stories we tell are not just about monsters, but about ourselves. And so, with these final thoughts, our journey comes to an end. The flickering candlelight in the paper room is now a distant memory, and the howling wind outside is just the sound of a fan. The shadows on the walls are just shadows, and the creaks and groans of the house are just an old building settling. The monsters are gone. They have retreated back into the world of myth, a place where they will wait patiently for the next traveller, the next listener, the next person to fall under their spell. But you are safe, and you are warm, and you are in your own bed. The stories have been told, and the journey is over.